crowds, followers, large groups of people, people that are cheering you up, people that are hyping you up, it means nothing. At least in the case of Jesus, it meant absolutely nothing. And now a quick word from our sponsor. My first sponsorship on this channel is Dossier. Dossier is a perfume company that does perfume on a budget, and they kindly sent me over 2 scents. The first one was Ambre Saffron, which is supposed to be a Baccarat Rouge dupe. And so they give you instructions on how it works. The packaging is beautiful. So the concept is designer perfume on a budget. Go on their website, browse through your favorite scents and find the dupes for them and enjoy. Coupon code will be in the description box. Each perfume is unique. They are small enough to fit in your purse. They're each 50 milliliters and they smell so basically good. We all know the stories of Jesus, the wonderful stories of our beautiful Savior. But let's zoom in on the word crowds. Okay, let's think about crowds. How many people followed him? How many people were around him? Think about when Jesus would teach in the synagogue and people would surround him and listen to his teachings. Think about when people followed him so much so that there wasn't any food. And the disciples came back and told Jesus, we only have a couple loaves of bread and a little bit of fish. And Jesus multiplied the fish and the bread for the crowds of people, for them to have food to eat, right? Think about the time when Jesus was walking through the crowds and there was a woman with the issue of blood who reached out and touched him and he healed her. Think about the crowds that came when Jesus was walking, preaching, healing, right? So Jesus was always around a bunch of people. The Bible even says there was a time when the crowds were calling him out of the house, calling him to come out. And he said he's not going to come out because he knew their hearts. He knew what was really in their heart. They weren't genuinely wanting to see this Messiah because of faith. They just kind of wanted to see all the demonstrations. They didn't really believe, right? So Jesus is always around people and crowds are always following him. Isn't it interesting that the same people that are hyping him up, saying that he can do miracles, saying that they saw him do this and they saw him do that and they saw him do that, and all these miracles, they are hyping him up and following him and chasing him so much so that he had to get on boats to go from one place to the next place away from the crowds. But when it comes for the time of accusation, those same crowds are piping up and saying, I heard him say that he has all authority and that he is gonna, take over. I heard him say that he's gonna do this. And I heard him say that he's gonna do that. And when the high priests wanted Jesus gone, they wanted to get rid of him because he was shaking up everything that they had built up these people to believe. He was shaking up their comfortability, their status in society. He was shaking up the tables. He was going into temples, flipping over the tables and saying, don't sell stuff here. This isn't a merchant ground. This is a house of prayer. My Father's house is going to be a house of prayer. Jesus was setting standard after standard, and these people had enough of it. They wanted to just live in their comfortability. They wanted to live in the traditions and the rituals and the creations that they set for themselves. And so these high priests, these religious leaders, these people that wanted Jesus out, what did they do? They started rallying up the crowds. Getting people excited, getting people against Jesus, getting people to believe lies, getting people to start believing that Jesus was this evil person. And so what ended up happening? There was a festival, and in this festival the king Pilate would listen to the crowds, and he would listen to them when they would offer their recommendation for which prisoner should be let go that year. And so Pilate put his ear out to the crowd and listened, and the crowd, easily swayed by these religious leaders, easily swayed by the chief priests and the high priest, said, what about this guy that we've seen do miracles and heal and teach us things that are so different? This guy apparently is bad because that's what they're saying. So we want to see Jesus dead. We want to see Barnabas out of prison, and we want to see Jesus dead. Crucify Jesus and take him in and bring out another person. Why? Because the high priests were literally swaying the crowds. I say this to say that crowds mean absolutely nothing. Because if we really think about it, how many followers did Jesus really have? If the people that he was healing and the people that he was feeding and the people that he was teaching could sit around in a crowd and gather in awe of him, but then still shout and scream and petition for him to be crucified. If his disciples who followed him earnestly could also say, I don't know that man, how many followers did Jesus really have then?
How many people could Jesus really say, these are my mandem, like these are the people that rock with me? And so now in today's day and age, when we're looking at people, we're looking at influencers, and we're looking at how many crowds do they have, how many people are following them. Even for us, when we want to start that blog or we want to start ministry, we're looking at, well, how many people are following me? How many crowds do I have? Does it really matter? Because Jesus had barely 5. There was barely 10 genuine hearts following him. So does it really matter how big our crowd is? And I think a lot of us would be doing some really great kingdom work if we weren't so caught up with the crowds, if we weren't so caught up with the followers, if we weren't so caught up with how many people think what we're doing is cool. Because arguably enough, Jesus didn't have a lot of followers back at that time. So that shouldn't be our qualifier or what validates us to do this work. It should really come from a place of obedience and love for God, right? And a place where we understand our mission to see souls won for the kingdom, to see people discipled, to see nations saved. It should come from this kingdom mandate rather than wanting validation from people. Crowds don't mean anything, because the same crowds that he fed, that he taught, that he loved are the same crowds that said, nail him to the cross.